What's up, average engineers? Today I wanted to do my own rant about DuckDB. I've been seeing a lot of stuff on Twitter, on both sides, on LinkedIn. Mostly on LinkedIn, the content's positive about DuckDB. The community seems kind of excited. The data engineering community seems kind of excited about it, but there's definitely, surprisingly, people give it sort of a hard time maybe. I just did a post. Maybe I can find it here and show you guys. And it's already gotten quite a bit more feedback than I thought. It's only the first day in, and it's kind of blowing up a little bit. DuckDB versus Polars for data engineering. Got people on both sides. I really took it as, I've not really used DuckDB much. I mean, I played with it a little, not using it in production. I don't really have that many opinions about it yet. But man, people love their tools. You got people that hate DuckDB, apparently I've seen, and there's some people on Twitter that just say DuckDB's a devil, but it has over like 1 million downloads, so apparently it's not the devil, and then other people say it's awesome. So I just kind of wanted to do a blog post where I just kind of like went through both tools, DuckDB and then Polar's like a data frame tool. It didn't really matter which one. You could compare DuckDB to anything. More or less, I was trying to understand what is it like to write a data pipeline in Polars or DuckDB versus Polars, or anything else, whether it's Spark or Pandas or whatever else you use. Just what's it like to write something in DuckDB? If you're not familiar with DuckDB, it's like the new SQLite for analytics, right? I'm sure you've heard of SQLite. It's basically like an in process, meaning like it's only going to live for as long as your process runs. Basically SQL layer. Provides you pretty much everything, ANSI SQL. That's kind of what I knew about it going into it, and that's what we'll kind of talk about. Is maybe I'll just show you some of the code that I ran and talk about some of the differences I saw when using DuckDB. And I would say I'm actually before I wrote this post, I was probably more on the I don't really get the DuckDB thing. I did, but didn't. I was like, oh, it's probably not that big a deal. But actually, after using it, I can see where people are coming from. And I think that more people are probably going to use it. And I think some of the downsides that people are talking about with performance and how things joins, I think they'll still probably get fixed by the community, fixed by people who are working on DuckDB. And I think that it is unique enough that it is probably going to be here to stay and people might start using it. I mean, it's hard to make prophecies, but it seems like it's a nice tool, and I'm going to show you why. So let's jump over to some code that I wrote for this blog post I wrote. And I just want to go through what I was trying to solve at a very high level, right? This is supposed to be very simple. The problem I was talking about was what is it like in DuckDB if you had to write a pipeline, which is very common, to read a CSV file from S3 to do some manipulation on it and then write out some Parquet files to S3. And, so basically read a flat file from S3, do some computation, some metrics, just some normal stuff, and then write Parquet files back out to S3. So it's obviously not the most complicated thing in the world, but it is enough to make you see, okay, what is this tool like? How can I interact with S3? How is it reading and writing S3 files? How is it dealing with Parquet files? How is it dealing with S3? What does that integration look like? How complicated is this? Because honestly, the more complicated things are, the more things are going to break, right? That's just the way life works. So I'm actually going to show you the Polars code I wrote. If you're not familiar with Polars, it's a Rust-based data frame tool. Check it out sometime. I think I've written some stuff on it in the past. I just want to show you what that simple pipeline would look in Polars, and then we'll look at it in DuckDB and kind of talk about the difference. So this is a code for Polars for basically reading a file from S3, a CSV file, and then doing some metrics and writing back a Parquet file. What I want you to notice here is the number of imports that I had to do. So here you can see polars, right? Look, I have to have 1, 2, 3 other imports, not counting the OS module. I had to have 3 other imports just to do that work. And I basically have to use, and why is that? Because Polars doesn't have a good integration directly with S3. It's not something like Spark where you can say, read this, and just give it an S3 path and it goes and does it. So I have to have Bodo3 here, right, to set up a client. I have to have a temporary file. I have to download that from Bodo. I have to download that file in the S3 bucket, that CSV file into a temp file, and then I can actually finally read it with Polars into a data frame. I like Polars, a nice tool. And then obviously I'm just doing some really simple stuff here, right? Grouping by a date and then counting the number of rides of the different ride types. I'm using some open source data set from Divi Bike Trips. You can go check it out. Sometimes kind of nice for playing around with data, so you get an idea what I'm talking about. But really I'm just like doing a group and by and sum. That's pretty normal, right? And then I have to write back that file out to S3 as a Parquet file, which wasn't too bad. Basically I have to use this file system that I can pass in basically, and then open that file and then send it back to as a Parquet from the data frame. Yeah, I mean, this is very simple, but I just want to point out that like there's a lot of different breakpoints, and you may not mind those, but right in the production context, usually things are a lot more complicated, and there's a lot of things going on. The nice thing about this type of code is you could break this up into functions, unit test it right. I was just slamming this out. But now I want to jump over to DuckDB. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? And this is why I want you to notice something here. This is why people are somewhat excited about DuckDB, and I know some people are down on it. I haven't used it enough to have that much of an opinion, but I just wanted to look at this code and explain why what you just saw, and look at this DuckDB code doing the same thing, and why, of course, people are going to be excited about it. I mean, number one, it's SQL. Anything SQL is going to be popular by default. It's just the way life is. Look at this code here. There's a one import, DuckDB. Okay, you saw the other code. Okay, I'm just throwing that out there. I know that you can argue all day long about how complex or incomplex something is, about flexibility and if this is good or not, but I'm just saying there's one import, okay? Like, just gonna leave it at that. Okay, now the code is simple, right? DuckDB.SQL, and look at, I'm installing this HTTPS file system, basically sort of the same thing Polars had to do, but inline in the SQL. Setting some regions, setting the keys for my personal bucket, right? I'm creating a view as a select statement. Now look at this. I can read CSV auto straight from that CSV file, putting my aggregations right on top of that in the same statement. Pretty cool. Create a view called metrics, point the read CSV auto at the S3 file, straight at it, do your metrics, and then simply run another DuckDB command of copy the metrics, that view, copy it to this Parquet file. I mean, that's just kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. Do you not think that's cool? I think it's cool. Actually, no, I'm looking at this. I don't even know if this is right. Copy metrics to. I'm just saying copy it to there. I wonder what it wrote it out as, if it's not even a Parquet file. No one's commented. Called me an idiot. I'll have to look into that later. But I mean, I think you get the point. DuckDB, that it's kind of nice, right? It's all in one, especially if you're talking about data munging. I don't know. This gets into the whole topic of like, what is DuckDB for? It seems like there's a lot of confusion about that. Is it for production use? I've seen some really stupid article posted once about how it can replace your data warehouse, which it can't. At least not yet. I mean, there's people playing around with that. I'm sure that'll come down the line. Can you do it right now? No. Would you want to right now? No. I would not recommend that. I mean, it's pretty young in its infancy, so I would highly suggest, waiting a while before trying to do something like that. But there's something here, right? You can see it's obvious. Anyone that writes code, any data engineer, if you're looking at this, these two scripts, like there's something here. There is something with DuckDB. What is it? I don't know. The way they integrated everything into SQL, maybe, and people love SQL. It's easy to use, easy to install. You go and start looking at their documentation. It's like, look how easy it is just to read CSV files and to export them. And the same with Parquet's import export. It's just, I don't know. There's something simple about it. And it can do all the normal SQL functions. I mean, you don't need me to talk about group bys. It can do all that stuff in SQL, in process, but yet it has this really nice I would call it like Spark style integration with, remote files, for example, right? You can go through their documentation. It's real easy to read a Parquet from an S3 bucket, supposedly. I mean, it's just hard to beat that, and I'm still trying to come down on why some people on Twitter and other places hate DuckDB, it seems like. I mean, I know there's Mother Duck coming out, and they'll probably have a product, and they're probably going to do really well. I'm just going to forecast it and say they're going to do well. Why? Because the tool is very easy to use, very easy to install, and has great integrations with other things like S3 and other file formats. And it really just, I think it speaks to data engineering. It speaks to making things simple, a tool that you can do everything in one. I mean, I have some concerns with it, like I put in my blog post. Maybe I'll link to it. You can go read it, The problem with DuckDB and some of the SQL everything is that it's very easy for someone to go back to the SQL Server world. Well, now everything's a stored procedure and a trigger, and you got this spaghetti SQL everywhere, and it's untestable and unusable and unmanageable, right? Anytime you have pure SQL tools, that's going to be a problem. You have to watch out for that, but that's just good data engineering practice, right? Now you have things like DBT, and there's I think a plugin for DuckDB and DBT to go together. So you can overcome those sort of things, but you have to take your engineering to the next level, take it serious, not to end up with something bad. But I guess after doing this little project and looking at this very simple pipeline side by side, I'm definitely starting to see the use cases for DuckDB. Will I use it and find a place to put it into production if I can? Absolutely. I don't really care if it's the fastest thing in the world or not. People can argue about bench performances all the time. There's a place for performance, but there's also a place for simplicity and ease. And in the future, if I have to do something on a Lambda or something really quick, work with a file, do a little something, flat file S3 to S3, something like that, this is a no-brainer. It's a one pip install. I don't have to do anything else. If I was going to do it in Polars, I'd have to import Bodo, jump through the hoops, write more code. That's going to be more breakpoints, more things that could go wrong. Dude, the DuckDB, it's easy. It's just all right there, man. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm a total believer yet, but I'm getting there. And I would say I'm coming down on the DuckDB side. There's definitely something cool going on here, and you should definitely pay attention and watch what happens with this tool because they're doing a great job, and I can't imagine what's coming in the future. Thanks for listening to my rant.